My name is John Wayne Gacy. I'm known as the Killer Clown, who murdered 33 boys and shocked the nation. John Gacy, the time has come. Alright, I'm coming. On my way to the execution room, I look back on my life. How on earth did I end up like this? I was born in March of 1942 in Chicago, Illinois. My father, John Sr., was a gifted craftsman. He had a bad temper because of his mental illness. He was a very stern and disciplined man who often acted violently towards his family. I had a heart condition that prevented me from fulfilling my father's expectations of a son. Idiot. Mama's boy. Sissy was what he called me. Those were the days I suffered the most. I would also often black out from seizures. There's so much fuss about this dumbass just because of some bullshit illness, he would say. I graduated from a vocational school with great grades, and I stupidly thought I would finally get some praise from my father. I was exempted from military service because I failed the fitness test due to my medical history. My father always wanted a strong son, and because I wasn't the son he had hoped for, he beat me and called me a fuckhead. I had once fainted while having sex with my 18-year-old girlfriend. When my father found out, he said, "You fucktard, get out," and threw me out of the house. Even after all his abuse, I still longed for my father's approval. When I was about 20 years old, I got into an argument with my father about using the car. In the end, I had to lie to him so that he'd let me use it. I ran away to Las Vegas, where I ended up working a part-time job at a mortuary for 3 months. I was a mortuary attendant and often watched morticians embalming the bodies. I saw countless bodies during my time there, and a peculiar sensation developed within me. I later graduated from a business school in Chicago and took a management trainee position at a well-known shoe company. I performed well in my role and was quickly promoted to the regional manager position. I also became a dedicated worker for a local nonprofit organization called the Junior Chamber. Through my hard work, I became well known within the organization and eventually climbed up to the vice president role. Between JC, my job, and my volunteer work, I often worked from early morning to late at night. People started calling me the man who never sleeps. I did all of this in an attempt to finally be recognized by my father. One night I got drunk and slept with a man. Everything my father had said about me became true, and it terrified me. He was right after all. Since then, I couldn't stop. My first victim came 3 years later. His name was Donald, and he was the 15-year-old son of an acquaintance. I had invited him over to watch a pornographic movie in my basement. At one point, I started paying boys money so I could continue satisfying my urges. When I was 26, Donald's father notified the police after learning about what had happened to his son. On the day of my conviction, my wife Marilyn asked for a divorce. From that point on, my life continued to get worse. I was sentenced to 10 years in prison. My mind went numb. However, I quickly gained a reputation of being a model prisoner and was able to get out after only 16 months. Upon my release, I found out that my father had passed away from cirrhosis of the liver. I broke down when I received the news. All I wanted was my father's approval. That was no longer possible, and I was at a complete loss. After that, I was able to successfully reinvent myself and started a construction business. I married Carol, a woman I dated back in high school. On my days off, I often volunteered as Pogo the Clown for fundraising events. I was quite popular with the children. The best part of my act as Pogo was a special trick using handcuffs. I would later use this very same trick in my future murders. One night, I picked up a young male prostitute to sleep with. The next morning, I woke up and found him standing in front of me with a knife in his hand. I wrestled him to the ground, took the knife, and stabbed him. It was only then that I discovered the reason why he had been holding the knife. He was making us breakfast. I panicked as I didn't know what to do with his body. I decided to hide it in the floor and not speak of it to anyone. That's how I got started with raping and killing. I threw lime on the bodies to cover up the smell. Things started to go south with my wife, and we divorced. Meanwhile, the number of bodies kept increasing. My trick was to lure boys from JC into my basement to watch porn, handcuff them, rape them, and murder them. I once put a rosary around the boy's neck and used a ballpoint pen to twist it like a tourniquet. I would repeatedly squeeze his neck by tightening, then loosening it. The pleasure that his suffering gave me was incredible. A boy named Robert was reported as missing by his family after failing to return from an interview for my construction company. From there, I was tailed by detectives, arrested for possession of illegal drugs, and eventually had my house searched. The police found 29 bodies under my floor and another 4 bodies in the river because I had run out of space. I was finally arrested and sentenced to death for the murder of 33 people. I was led into a room that contained a stretcher with restraints. The time had come. Do you have any last words? Kiss my ass. Gacy began receiving the drugs that would end his life. However, for some unknown reason, he did not die immediately. Instead, he began twisting and writhing in pain. Hurry up and kill me! On May 10th, 1994, John Gacy was executed by lethal injection. He was supposed to have died quietly in approximately 7 minutes. However, his death was excruciatingly painful and took nearly 20 minutes because of a mistake caused by inexperienced technicians. One of the prosecutors at Gacy's trial commented, "He got a much easier death than any of his victims."